Hi, it's Ed here for the NQAT Daily. Today I'm on my own, which won't be common because I'm Billy no mates and none of my fellow hosts could come. But the topic is one that I really wanted to talk about because it's really important to the future of United, and that is Project 150. 150 was announced by Omar Berrada at a staff meeting on Wednesday and reported in The Athletic on Thursday. And it's United's plan to win the Premier League title by 2028. And that's the club's 150th anniversary. None of you were around then, not even me, and I'm old. The piece in The Athletic sort of detailed how Barada had talked to staff, and staff morale has been low since all the cuts. And I think this was a meeting to kind of set the vision for what United will be in the next few years. You'll remember Jim Ratcliffe spoke earlier in the summer about not having a 10-year plan, but having a 3-year plan. And so the first challenge is to win the Premier League and to win it by this major milestone in the club's history. And in that meeting, so it's reported by The Athletic, Barada also spoke about a women's team and about how there's an ambition to win the WSL by 2028 too. And that would be the first title for the women, of course. But mostly I'm going to talk about the men's team today. And if the men could actually achieve winning the Premier League title by 2028, and I know right this moment it seems unlikely, it'd be 15 years since the last title under Alex Ferguson in 2013. And it's remarkable to think that there'll be many United supporters who've never seen a title, and I've seen a lot. And not to labour the point, but we've talked about this quite often on the pod, haven't we? About how United's dysfunction, and particularly dysfunction in the transfer market, with more than a billion, actually, it's about 1.5 billion euros since Ferguson left and since our last title. And in the meantime, the club hired about, 5 permanent managers, fired 4 of them, had 3 interims, and has never really seriously challenged for the title at all. Of course, second under Oli, second under Jose, but really miles off the champions in each of those seasons. It's just been a massive waste of a decade of £1 billion of the club's money. Another billion, of course, has gone out to the Glazer family. And in the meantime, we've been overtaken, surpassed by all of our rivals, both in the Premier League and those abroad, and those who've cheated to get there, like City, and others that have done it in perhaps a more traditional way, who are now sort of bettered by Arsenal, Liverpool, hate to say it. Back to 150. What is this? Is it an ambitious plan? Is it ambitious enough? Is it realistic enough? 3 years to get back to the top. How far are we away really from being Premier League title winners again? That's the topic of the discussion. I just want to take you through a few of the things I think are kind of important when we think about where we're going. And when I say discussion, of course, I'm going to talk through this myself. I've never actually done this before. I'm not sure I'm that comfortable with it. I like having a conversation, but Billy No Mate's Ed will be going through some of the ideas. It just seems like an interesting thing that we should think about kind of closely, because this is setting the stall out for the vision for the club. So what needs to be done? Well, a lot of it's already been talked about, and what has already been achieved already, I want to talk about as well, try and set some context for the return to the club's rightful place as the best side in English football. So some thoughts about the context. What has been done? Since Ineos took over and they completed their 27.7 minority purchase in December last year, it'll be 28 and a bit by December this year. Ineos' chairman, Jim Ratcliffe, or Sir Big Jim, has taken the view that in order to fix the club, the manager has to be supported by a proper structure. And I think he's thought about this in a kind of holistic way. What's the right environment for success, rather than necessarily what are the right players and who's the right manager? They come under that, and the biggest changes have taken place to kind of put that environment into place. So, in executive roles, in some coaching, quite a lot of backroom staff as well. And I'm just going to go through a few of them, just set the context. So apart from Berrada, who's the CEO, and he's been quite low profile, I'd say, since he came in. Not a lot of public facing interviews or fan engagement. We've appointed Jason Wilcox, who's now the technical director. Previous technical director, Darren Fletcher, is now a technical coach. We've appointed Christian Vivel as the director of recruitment and scouting, reporting in Steve Brown, who's the chief scout still. He first came in as an interim, now is permanent, I think. And there's truly a massive scouting team underneath. It's hard to underestimate that. It's like 100 people. And on the coaching front, the decision was taken to support rather than replace Erik ten Hag. I mean, there was that big sort of brouhaha in the summer about interviewing every manager possible. We brought in Ruud van Nistelrooy and Randy Harker. They're both like first team assistant coaches, replacing Mitchell van der Gaag, trying to provide different sounding board. We've had Jel ten Valtevela, who's the club's new goalkeeping coach. We appointed Andreas Georgsen as a technical coach. He seems to have a kind of remit to improve United set pieces, which actually I think we've seen already with the amount of chances we've created. In the medical department, Gary O'Driscoll joined from Arsenal last September as head of medical. So before Ineos had kind of completed their takeover, we've had David Harrison appointed as director of football operations, kind of taking over some of the Murtaugh remit, I think. And Sam Erith has been brought in as a head of performance. We had a few changes on the performance and analytics side of things to go alongside that. We've had Jordan Rees appointed as head of physio, and boy, do we need it. And of course, overseeing all of that is Dan Ashworth, director of football, came from Newcastle for 2.5-3 million, something like that, as the final fee they agreed. And so that's the system that's been put in place by Ineos to support the men's team, and mostly the men's team, I should say, because there isn't actually a new football director for the women's team yet. And there's certainly been a justifiable criticism of United's approach there to date. Second, and that's behind the executive changes, I think we've witnessed the first window under the Ineos regime, and it felt like a very different one. And time will certainly tell whether all the players are going to work out. My instinct is to say that this is the first window in a decade or so that has been completely coherent in its thinking. Now, it doesn't mean they're all going to work out. We've brought 5 first-team players in, 14 left. That's first-team fringe and a few of the higher-profile youth, even more less high-profile youth left. And it seems to me to be a pretty serious step in rebalancing both the wage budget and the squad balance, although there's quite a bit to go on both those fronts. I think you'd agree. But it's that sense of coherence that we are aiming for something and we're going out and trying to achieve it that gives me a little confidence that even if the players don't work out or they're not all perfect, that we're getting to a much better hit rate. And that hit rate has been, 20% maybe even lower, extraordinarily low, of players that you'd say were a definite hit. Okay, so back to Project 150. How are United actually going to win the Premier League within the next 3 years in the face of incredibly intense competition? So Manchester City state-funded cheating, I should say, but also just money and ambition amongst all the top 6. That leaves us, by my calculation, 6 transfer windows before 27-28, in which to transform the squad into title contenders. That's 6 windows in which we've got to gradually increase the quality of the squad, quality of players that we have in every single position, but also moving out the players who are aging or underperforming. And I believe they set a goal of 2 years for each player to prove that they're good enough, bringing in increasingly better replacements, and making sure like 75% of them work out. And all while sorting out United's budget and FFP position, which have been challenged because of the massive cycle of overspending and wasted spending. Then, of course, there's a really big question. On Thursday, Berrada said, or Wednesday, whenever the meeting was, reportedly said that their support for Eric Ten Hag is, as coach, is as strong as ever. Ratcliffe has said that before. In a sense, the club can't say anything else. He's going to be backed until the day they sack him, basically, and it shouldn't really and can't really be any other way. Though, of course, they very much did undermine Eric's position by interviewing what seemed like every single coach known to man over the summer. And in the end, they decided that Eric's the man for now, at least. Maybe a case of better the devil you know, rather than taking a chance on someone they didn't fully believe in. It's a difficult question, isn't it? Sacking Ten Hag could delay the project, could delay Project 150 and get us into a new cycle with a new manager. A new coach or a new manager inevitably wants their own players. We've seen this under 5 managers now since Fergie. They inevitably have a different methodology. Players have to learn or relearn. There's 100, 120 coaching sessions before it sort of sinks in. Though, of course, part of Wilcox's job now is to try and ensure consistency from coach to coach, so that the disruption of firing managers, if we have to do it, is much, much less. And we've seen it now over 5 cycles, haven't we, since Fergie left? So it comes down to the question, can we win the league by 2025? And for me, there's an awful lot of variables in play to suggest that that goal is aspirational, not a guarantee. I know that's obvious, but we should kind of think of it as a North Star in some kind of sense. And also putting in place a system that I hope makes United more likely to challenge. Challenge for the Premier League, Europe, of course, but we're playing catch up. And I think we should be honest with ourselves about that. And the online conversation is very rarely honest. We're playing catch up in terms of quality on the pitch, the depth of squad that we need. We're also playing catch up in terms of finances. That's where we used to lead. We used to lead the Deloitte Money League every year, and now we're almost 100 million in revenue off City and off Real Madrid. And I know City's model isn't sustainable without Abu Dhabi, but we're no longer the richest. We can't just swing our big financial dick and expect that to work. So what can the club improve on to get the ambition behind 150? Well, there's a 4-point area, I think. 1, a more productive youth talent line. Now, this is not in order. Just more productive youth talent line to augment the squad. And Nick Coxey's under-18s did really well last year, and there's quite a few who could make it. I don't know. Ethan Wheatley, Harry Amas, Shea Lacey, Gabriel Biancheri, Amir Ibrahimov, a bunch of others who've got a chance. I would say there's no guarantee with any of them, but a chance. And to be cruder, and sorry, but that production line isn't just about quality of play coming into the first team. It's also a major revenue stream. Match day, broadcast, sponsorship, and transfers. And City and Chelsea have done this really, really well by converting young players to sales. That's a factor of more than just the quality of the youth setup. It's also success of players coming into the first team or doing really well on loan that creates a halo effect and makes United's players attractive. Okay, number 2, United have got to find a way to diversify and augment revenue. Part of that might be in the transfer market, but we really have a problem. The link between on-the-pitch success through sponsorships and particularly broadcast revenues where United have fallen behind. Now, if we get better on the pitch, we'll catch up a little bit. New stadium's going to be really important. I know this isn't universally popular, but it will bump revenue significantly, but it's years away and much further out than 2025. Beyond that, the prospect of sort of rising ticket prices is not one any fans want to countenance or will enjoy, but we might have to think about it. Point 3, we've got to get better in the transfer market. Our transfer strategy has to be coherent and make sense. And I think in one window, we've already seen that is possible. It was much closer. Whatever happens with the 5 players we brought in, much closer to something that was totally coherent and will get us to more hits. 75%, I think, should be hits rather than misses. And 4, finally, and this is the big one, the manager. Is Erik ten Hag the man who can take United to a Premier League title? And can he do it by 2028? And I kind of have my doubts about that. The club is saying all the right things here. As I said, they can't really do anything else. But the problem I'm seeing is that too many of the same errors are being repeated for it not to be a pattern now. And this is not a tactical breakdown, but I think we've seen it over and over again. And the question really is, what is the game model, to use the parlance? Is it the first half against Palace, high possession, technical, or is it more about Ten Hag's tendency to choose direct football, back to front very quickly, chaos ball, transitional football, the one that he kind of seems to really believe in? And if so, is the disconnect between the club, the club's vision and game model, and Ten Hag too big? And if it is, Ten Hag's going to be replaced. And if 2028 is our vision, if that's the point we're aiming for, he's going to be replaced quicker, because otherwise we start the 3-year cycle all over again. All right. That's my monologue, my thoughts, my inner monologue, which I'm sharing with you on Project 150, aiming for the Premier League title by 2028. Champions League this year, title challenge next year, win the title in 27-28. Go on, you Reds. Thanks for watching.